I'm going to call this regular meeting of the Coralville City Council to order on February 26, 2019. Roll call.
Councilmember Foster.
Present.
Gross.
Here.
Gill. Present. Dodds. Goodrich.
Here.
Okay, all council members are present, as is the mayor and city clerk, city administrator, city attorney, and several staff members in the audience. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Gill, seconded by Gross. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's approved. Okay, I have a proclamation to make this evening I'd like to read. City of Coralville proclamation. Whereas honeybees and native insects are important as pollinators for a third of the food we eat, and honeybees are vital in production of over 90 crops grown across the nation, many of which are in Iowa. Honeybees contribute to a healthy Iowa environment by assuring availability of fruits, vegetables, nuts, and flowers for wildlife in all Iowans. And whereas Iowa's 45,000 or more honeybee hives produce about 4 million pounds of honey valued at over $8 million, and honeybees provide an estimated $92 million of economic value to Iowa crops from their pollination. And whereas Iowa's had over 4,500 beekeepers representing hobbyists, sideliners as part-time businesses, and full-time commercial beekeepers. Hobby beekeepers have as few as one hive to commercial operations with thousands of hives. And whereas traditionally beekeeping occurred in rural areas of Iowa, now beekeeping increasingly occurs in urban areas with the rising interest of hobby beekeepers keeping beehives in Iowa cities and towns. And whereas the state of Iowa has an active apiary inspection program to protect honeybees and beekeepers from introduction and spread of apiary diseases and pests. And whereas honeybees face serious threats from invasive pests, decreasing bee-friendly forage, variable climate, and increasing pesticide and herbicide pressure. Now therefore I, John A. Lundell, Mayor of the City of Coralville, do hereby proclaim February 27th, 2019 to be Iowa Honeybee Day, and encourage all citizens and residents and visitors to join in observing this day and focusing on the importance of honeybees to our state economy, to enjoy the honey and other products of honeybees, to recognize the honeybees' role in maintaining our Iowa environment, and to assist in reducing the threats to honeybee survival in our state. Signed this 26th day of February 2019, John A. Lundell, Mayor. We have Ed St. John, a local bee and honey enthusiast in the audience, and I'd like to invite him to come up and receive the proclamation.
Thank you.
Yep. Ed, it's a pleasure to have you here, and please say a few words if you'd like.
Well, thank you, Mayor, council members. On behalf of the Iowa Producers Association, we extend our thanks for your support and affirmation of this proclamation. You should be aware that you are joining 23 other Iowa cities and the governor in proclaiming tomorrow as Iowa Honeybee Day. So you're in good company. And essentially what you've done with the proclamation is raise community awareness of the honeybee and its status in Iowa. And for that, we thank you.
It's a pleasure. Glad to do it. Thank you, Ed. Good luck with your ceremony in Des Moines tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, item 5 is citizen comments. This is the time for anyone in the audience that'd like to speak to us tonight about an item that's not already on the agenda. Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to item 6, which is the fiscal year 2020 budget. Public hearing. First, though, we'll have a budget presentation by our Finance Director, Tony Rotland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to run through the presentation that we went through when we set this hearing, and it's also available on Coralville.org. So this is the fiscal 2020 budget that we're holding a hearing on. It runs from July 1st, 2019 through June 30, 2020. The proposed property tax rate is unchanged at $13.5277 per thousand of taxable value. So this will be the 10th consecutive year if approved in this fashion. There is a sewer rate increase proposed to fund future citizen needs at the wastewater treatment plant. So the goals are to pass a balanced budget, maintain the property tax rate, maintain sufficient fund balances, and provide quality public services. Challenges, just like in our home budgets, are generally rising costs and planning for future needs, and we want to, again, provide services at an economical cost level. So property in Iowa is categorized into classes, each with varying taxing procedures, and they're listed on this slide. There's a growth limitation imposed on several of the classes to eliminate dramatic tax shifts of the tax burden between the classes, and the reduction due to that growth limitation is called a rollback. That changes every year, so here's a comparison of the FY20 rollback figures for each class with the current fiscal year, FY19's rollback figures. So you can see that the residential rollback went up, meaning the taxable value is higher, all things equal. Multi-residential continues its stair step downward towards when it'll be the same as the residential at some point. And then commercial and industrial stayed the same, and ag changed, but that has very little impact in the city of Coralville. So a residential property assessed at $100,000 would have a taxable value in FY20 that is $1,297 higher than in FY19 because of that change in rollback. So because the proposed tax rate is the same, the property tax that would be paid for the city portion of the tax bill would increase by $17.55. For a commercial property valued with an assessed value of $500,000, the taxable value would remain the same because the rollback has not changed. The proposed tax rate's the same, so the tax bill for city taxes would not change for that property owner. In 2013, there was something called commercial and industrial property tax reform. That rolled back commercial and industrial from 100% to 90% for taxable values. The state committed to replacement payments to local government, commonly called backfill payments. There's no provision of a sunset, and those payments are important to local governments, including Coralville, because they fund things that the general fund would pay, things like police, fire, parks, recreation, facilities and services, the debt service fund, TIF funds, and the employee benefits fund. So the city property tax levy has 5 basic components in Coralville. The general fund levy, an insurance levy, a transit, dedicated, and specific levy, trust and agency or employee benefits levy, and the debt service levy. And on this slide, we show the proposed FY20 and 19 tax rates for the city in each of those levies. And they're the same. You don't have to run through and make sure every compare the two numbers. The main point of this slide is that to show the proportionality and the fact that they're the same year over year. So if you look at property tax rates on a typical Coralville property owner's tax bill, you'll see these entities: the school, the city, the county, the community college, the assessor, ag extension office, and the state of Iowa. And these are the tax rates per thousand of taxable value. And on this slide, we show, just in a different format, the proportionality of it. So basically, for an Iowa City School District property taxpayer, as opposed to a Clear Creek Amana one, in Coralville, 41% goes to the schools, 37 to Coralville, 18 to Johnson County, and there are a few other smaller ones as well. So the general fund is the city's chief operating fund, and the revenues that come into the general fund are various and include property tax, hotel motel tax, building permits and rental housing inspection fees, money, use of money and property, so interest and rent. There are intergovernmental revenues, so grants or contract revenues received from other units of government, like a neighboring city or the state or the federal government. Charges for services, like rec fees, and then other financing sources. The estimated revenue for FY20 is projected to be just a little over $28 million for the general fund. That's about a 2% increase over the current fiscal year. And I have a listing of all the things supported by that revenue, from public safety and health and social service programs and grants to general government and community costs. So here we have a percentage breakout and dollar breakout of revenues to the general fund. So you can see property and excise taxes are the largest revenues to the general fund, and excise taxes are like property taxes that electric and gas utilities pay. Property taxes are pretty straightforward. We have charges for services, hotel motel tax revenues paid by hotel patrons, and a variety of smaller percentage revenues as well. And we have the departmental budgets on this slide with a percentage breakout. So park and rec programs and services, public safety, those two are at the top, and library, museum, other culture, sort of, and administration and engineering and building inspection sort of in the middle, and then we get to some of the smaller departments at the bottom. There are special revenue funds as well. One good example of that is the state road use tax receiving fund called the Road Use Tax Fund or the Streets Department. So distributions from the state are based on the last official census, which would be 2010 for Coralville, and they're estimated to be at $121.50 per capita for FY20, which is the same level as the current fiscal year. Usually the projections are a little higher than the current fiscal year, and usually they're conservative, meaning we tend to receive a little more than the DOT projects. This time the projection is flat versus the current year, and that will produce, if we get $121.50 per capita, estimated revenues of almost $2.3 million. And those would be spent on snow plowing and spreading salt and sand, as well as patching streets, repairing and maintaining them, street lighting, street signals, things like that. For the enterprise funds, we're proposing no change in the rates for users for all of them except the sewer enterprise. And that sewer rate change proposal is both an increase to the monthly minimum charge and the volume charge based on cubic feet of metered water usage. And so this slide does some comparison and shows you the change in those two components for, on the bottom piece, for what's considered by the industry a typical household, which is a 3-bedroom household. And here's on this slide an overview of the various enterprise funds. There's a revenue column and an expenditure column. You might note that the second row for wastewater or sewer is significantly higher than it would have been in prior years, and that's because we have a big project in the wastewater treatment plant, the main plant, and so there's borrowing proceeds and construction expenditures in that number as well. So timing and additional information. The Connection magazine, this is the presentation I gave last time. It says scheduled to appear soon. It's on the website and has hit mailboxes some time ago. Today, we are holding the public hearing. We're planning on March 12th at 6:30 p.m. to have the council consider passage of the budget, and then it will be filed with the auditor soon thereafter and will be effective beginning July 1st. And you can get more information at coralville.org/finance/budget or in person at City Hall or the Coralville Public Library in the connection on Coral Vision and simply by calling City Hall.
Okay. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
I'd like to open the public hearing on the city's proposed fiscal year 2020 budget. Like to close the, no. Is there anyone that would like to speak to us? Please introduce yourself and sign in.
Evening, Mayor and City Council staff. My name is Rex Brandstatter, and I live at 2159 Lindcrest Drive here in Coralville, and I'm probably your average taxpayer, so to speak, in Coralville. So I describe myself as the gym rat of the Coralville budget, and I have taken the time to review, look at, think about, process in my mind things that have happened and will happen, always take place here in Coralville, and I thought maybe I'd come this evening and share some of that with you. It is absolutely my pleasure and privilege to be here tonight to be able to discuss with you the budget, of which, like Tony says, easy to find in the connection online, cable TV, and we can get a copy at the library. So thank you for your transparency on all these things. Who takes their advantage of it? I don't know, but it's out there. That's your job, is to get it out there. So the budget, I might add, looks pretty familiar to me, and after watching the budget review on Channel 5 and reading as much as I could, I talk to employees, I always talk to staff, and in my personal opinion, your new budget is a reflection of a good, solid, tight, and a responsive budget. Responsive meaning to the needs of Coralville, to the needs and maybe not the wants. That's a big word from the department heads, but the needs balanced in with some of the wants from the department heads. That's what makes a good a functioning budget, in my opinion. It's solid in the fact that you've paid attention to the main job of all city councils, and that's to provide the basic services to the taxpayers of the city of Coralville. And I would allude to the services that people see. And those are always, in any community, the police and the fire and the streets and the garbage recycling and the recreation, the library, and of course the responsible leadership. Those are things that people see, and those are things that you get judged on. They don't see the things that go on at City Hall and the other things behind the scenes that have to happen. They only see the fire trucks. They only see the garbage guys. And by the way, our staffs and those guys, those mainline street guys, are doing a great job for all of us. On your behalf, the long nights at City Hall and the committee meetings to discuss all aspects of the operation of a city are your reward for winning an election. There you go. I mean that honestly. And I honestly think you're doing a great job. Now, people expect the police department to be there when they need them. They expect the fire department to be there in an instant. I spent 20 years, the mayor and I spent 20 years across the alley over there, and we know what that's all about. And on the Coralville Fire Department, if you're 2 seconds late, we always used to say you miss a truck. And that's nowhere you want to be. You don't want your name listed on the board as missing a truck. So there's a esprit de corps over there that has never quit. It's always been in vogue to be a spirited volunteer fire department, which we have in this community. And the citizens expect the fire department to be there with the firefighting, the best equipment, and the firefighting know-how. And they also expect beautiful parks and swimming pools, a rec center, and programs. And let me tell you, they expect a first-class library too. And that first-class library started down in Old Town Hall with the Girl Scouts. You read in the Brownies, rounding up 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 books, and look out the window and see what we have today. And along with these expectations, are the ones that they talk about. The ones that they talk about the most are the ones that we just mentioned. So you're being judged on those things, including the snow and the potholes and things like that. And speaking of that, hope your street maintenance budget for next year is going to be pretty good, because you're going to need it, I'm afraid. All communities are suffering the same thing. I would note too, in the budget, we've made changes in our cable TV operations, and we're adding staff to the library, and we continue to add value, and I think in this budget, to the city and taxpayers, as well as we have very, very good and always have had good responsive city department heads. Now, here's the Coralville that I see, and I wish others could see this, right? It's a great place to live, work, and recreate. We have a fire rating of 2.0. No volunteer fire department has that. We do. We're the top 10 in the nation in a per capita ridership for a city of our size for mass transit. 2 fire stations full of excellent equipment, and a staff mostly with volunteers. 20 years, I never got a paycheck. I got a sandwich and a root beer once a month, and that was it. And I didn't even ask for that. I just gave me that. A police department that has more EMTs than any other police departments our size. We have a huge public trail system for walking, hiking, biking that is ever expanding. And by the way, make sure you take time some afternoon or evening and walk along Edgewater Drive. That is a wonderful, the hotel walk, I call it, and we do it all the time. It's just a great place to be. An 18-hole public golf course with a beautiful public available clubhouse to the public. Outdoor and indoor pools and a wonderful slate of recreational activities in our rec department. A beautiful park system with our own softball complex and BMX bicycle course. And best of all, we have a thing that's been here for a long, long time. It's called Coralville Pride. And if you take the Coralville Pride and stir it around, that's where we get what we have in this community today. At the direction of the voters, you are our leaders, and you are the guiding ship, and we are on course. Indicators of a good, responsive budget, in my opinion, there's no increase in the city's tax levy. For the 10 years, it's been at the 13.5277. No increase, in my opinion, due to unrealized expenses. Yes, there, just like in your household, there's things along the way. Did you know that 50% of Americans cannot stand, they cannot take or absorb a $600 car repair bill? It's just, those are things that just don't happen in over 50% of our population. And no glaring over expenditures for wants instead of needs, okay? So I would like to take this time to say thank you for this budget, and thank you for your time and your efforts that you put in down here to lead this city, which remains the best value in a community in the state of Iowa for our tax dollar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rex. Appreciate it. Anyone else like to speak to the public hearing? Are there any written comments?
No written.
Okay. Well, seeing none, I will close the public hearing, and as Tony mentioned, action will be taken at our next council meeting to consider approving this proposed budget. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 7, which is Lot 1, Encompass Edition, public hearing. This is the project that we've heard about several times now, the Encompass Healthcare Facility, a rehabilitation hospital. It's being proposed to be built on Coral Court on our west side. And building official Jim Kessler will lead us through the report.
That was half my report. As the mayor said, this actually is located along Coral Court. This is, excuse me, Oakdale Boulevard coming to the roundabout with Jones Boulevard and Jones Boulevard headed to the south. This is a 7.7 or 7.4 acre development of the Encompass Hospital. This is a 40-bed hospital. It doesn't have an emergency room. It doesn't do surgery. It is for people that can no longer stay in a hospital but aren't ready to go home yet, or people that need therapy that they can't receive anywhere else, and that's what the goal of this hospital is, to provide for these people. So as I said, it's 40 beds. Gave you the location of where it sits. The site has 2 entrances off of Coral Court, one on the north and one on the south. It has 120 parking places, which is quite a few more than they need, but they do have 2 phases that could be future expansion. This is one phase down here on the south, and then a smaller phase up here on the north. So those sites are kind of being kept open for future expansion. It is a total masonry-clad building. We worked with them to take some ephes off of it that it had in this area here and around here, but now it's totally masonry building. The construction for this, they would like to start in the spring, whenever that comes of this year, and end in, and be completed by the spring of 2020. I don't think I've missed anything that I had planned to say for tonight. There are representatives here from the engineer and from Encompass. If you have any further questions, I'm sure they'd be happy to step to the mic and answer that for you. This was on the planning and zoning meeting and recommended for approval by the commission by a 6-0 vote.
Okay, thank you, Jim. I'd like to now open the public hearing on this proposed PUD site plan for this project. Are there any comments? Any written?
No written.
Okay. I will therefore close the public hearing and consider the resolution. Don?
Resolution approving the PUDB site plan for Lot 1 Encompass Edition, Coralville, Iowa, introduced for adoption by Councilmember Foster, seconded by.
Second.
Second by, was it Goodrich? Okay. You'll all get a chance a little later. Okay, any questions or comments from the council? Roll call.
Gross.
Aye.
Gill. Aye. Dodds. Goodrich.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Resolution is approved, all ayes. Thank you for coming out tonight. Yep, hope you get home. The item 8 then is the ADA transition plan. This is the first item is a public hearing on the proposed ADA transition plan, which outlines the steps the city will take to achieve our compliance for pedestrian facilities in the public right-of-way. I'd like to open the public hearing. Are there any comments? No written. Okay. I'll close the public hearing and consider the resolution.
Resolution approving the ADA transition plan, introduced for adoption by Councilmember Gross, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Foster. Any discussion? Any questions? Is this the first one of these we've done, and does it have to be redone every so many years? Any requirements for that?
If we're going to update it at some point, it would have to be redone, but this will be in place, and as you know, in the budget, there's a budget line item to address this for this year and the years to come.
What it is?
Yes, it's basically, we're making sure that, for lack of a better, to make it layman's terms, we're improving the curb ramps to make, that are in the public right of way, to make sure that they're up to date with the ADA standards, and there are some, that's mostly what the plan addresses. And it's a requirement of receiving federal funds from the federal government for any type of federal funding for any type of department in the city.
Thank you, Kevin.
Okay. Anything else? Roll call?
Gill.
Aye.
Dodds.
Aye.
Goodrich.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gross.
Aye.
Resolution is approved, all ayes. Item A is the audit report that we've been trying to do for many times now. Steve Duggan is here with the Hogan Hansen firm to present our fiscal year 2018 audit report.
Very good. Okay,
Steve.
thank you, Mayor. Appreciate being here. You had the opportunity to receive and place on file the audit report, I think, in middle of January. I've been trying to get here since then, and every Tuesday it seems to snow. So thankfully, no snow tonight. First, I want to say thanks to Tony and his staff. They do a tremendous job to help through the audit process, to make sure we get things on a timely basis, complete and accurate information. So the entire staff in the finance department, as well as others within the city, do a great job to help us. And so we're grateful for their assistance in completing the audit. Once again, this year, the opinion we've expressed on the financial statements is an unmodified opinion, which means the financial statements are presented fairly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. This is the highest level opinion that you can receive on your financial statements. Citywide cash balances during the year increased approximately $7.4 million after decreasing $5.7 million the year before. Much of that can be attributed to the fact that the timing of capital projects, when those expenditures are made as the project progresses, versus when the funding is received either via bond proceeds or a grant reimbursement after expending the money for projects. So that generally is why your cash will increase or decrease significantly between the years. As you know, the general fund is the main operating fund of the city. The majority of the expenditures there is for payroll and benefits, day-to-day operating costs, as well as capital costs within public works, public service, and, or public safety, excuse me, and the recreation department. Now, this year, the general fund expenditures totaled approximately $20.4 million, which was up from $19.2 million the year before. But there was a significant capital expenditure, you may recall, during fiscal year 2018 for a new fire truck. So that was about $700,000 expenditure that flowed through the general fund this year. The general fund's unrestricted fund balance stood at $9.5 million at the end of 2018, which is about the same as the year before, which was $9.6 million. So one of the measures we do when we look at the general fund is to compare that to your general fund expenditures and ask what percentage is the general fund compared to your expenditures. So your general fund balance is, again, this year at about 50% of what the general fund expenditures were. So thought of another way, that equates to about 6 months' worth of expenditures in a general fund balance at the end of the year. So again, that's consistent with the prior year, and that's indicative of very healthy and very stable fund balance for a city. Lastly, because the city expended over $750,000 in federal funds, we're required to do compliance testing on certain grants. And this year, those were the FTA-funded grants. Particularly, there was about $1.5 million received for 4 new buses, but also the general operating grant for the transit department, as well as about $1.8 million spent on flood mitigation projects. Pleased to report the results of our compliance testing found that the city was in compliance with the regulations around both of those grants. So those were good. Any questions you might have for me tonight about the audit process or the financial statements?
You gotta fix my, term.
We've made you mayor for a little longer than you're actually legally elected for, but
Thank
we'll
you.
see. We'll get that fixed, yeah.
Okay.
That's certainly, anytime if you do have questions, if you'd like to pose those offline, Tony can get you my contact information. We're happy to answer any questions you might have. Okay,
Very good.
we're good. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Steve. I'm glad you could make it tonight. Good job, Tony and the staff, for working on that, so. Any other comments from the council on that item? Okay. Item 10, Iowa River Landing, north of East 9th Street landscaping enhancement, numbers 1 and 2. We'll start with a bid report. This is for a 3-part landscaping renovation project in the Iowa River Landing.
Yep, I'll make the report on that because our Park and Rec director that did all the work on this is ill tonight. There were 5 bids received on 2 different parts, Part 1 and Part 2. It was the recommendation of staff and our iRiver Landing consultants that we should actually combine the 2 projects together so that we only had one contractor working on the total projects. So the low bid was Alpha Landscapes for $76,250, and that was lower than the landscape architect's estimate, which was $91,200. All of the work would be completed by June 15th of 2019 and would be paid out of common area maintenance fees for the Iowa River Landing.
Okay. Thank you, Kelly. The first resolution, Dodd?
Resolution accepting bids and awarding the Iowa River Landing north of East 9th Street landscaping enhancements numbers 1 and 2, introduced for adoption by Councilmember Gill, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Gross. Discussion. Roll call.
Dodds.
Aye.
Goodrich.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gross.
Aye.
Gill.
Aye.
Resolution passes all ayes. The next resolution for this?
Resolution approving the contract and bond documents for the Iowa River Landing north of East 9th Street landscape enhancements numbers 1 and 2, introduced for adoption by Councilmember Dodds, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Gill. Discussion. Roll call.
Goodrich. Foster.
Aye.
Gross. Gill. Dodds.
Resolution passes all ayes. Item 11 is the Iowa River Landing lease extension agreement for the Massage Heights business in River Landing. This would be an extension of their lease until June 30th, 2024.
Resolution approving a lease extension agreement with Angela Marie Linden, DBA Massage Heights, introduced for adoption by Councilmember Goodrich, seconded by.
Seconded by Dodds. Discussion?
Yes, this would be the exercising of the first extension that the tenant has. And I think the first one that we've had come up in the Iowa River Landing.
Cupcake.
Oh, yeah, this would be second.
Second
This
one.
Scratch Cupcakes was the first.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Roll call.
Foster.
Aye.
Gross. Gill. Dodds. Goodrich.
Resolution passes all ayes. Item 12 is collateral assignment of development and parking agreements. This is an agreement dealing with parking with the Iowa Arena Hotel project. We'll consider the resolution.
Resolution approving the collateral assignment of the development agreement and parking agreement for the Straybridge Suites project, introduced for adoption by Councilmember Foster, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Goodrich. Discussion.
Yeah, this is just, we have the development agreement with the group doing that project, and this is just part of their loan for that. So if for some reason they defaulted, the bank could step into their shoes and finish everything out.
Okay. Anything else? Roll call.
Gross. Gill. Dodds. Goodrich.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Resolution passes all ayes. Item 13 is Transportation Alternative Program grant applications. It's for a couple proposed projects to apply for federal funding for. And Scott Larson, our Assistant City Engineer, is going to tell us about it.
And I actually have some dollar amounts to provide to you as well. So the first project is the Clear Creek connection from Highway 6 to the Tom Harkin Trailhead. And so this would extend the trail along the east side of Camp Cardinal Boulevard, be 10 foot wide, and would complete a very important link in our overall trail network. The total project cost estimate for that project is $482,195. Our grant request that we're making is for $332,715. So the local match on that project would be $149,480. And the second project is the Coralville, Iowa River Trail from Rocky Shore Drive to Clear Creek. Again, reestablishing an important trail connection that was lost due to the flood of 2008. Total project cost estimate is $889,970. We've already received one TAP grant amount of $151,363. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, that is our request. Our current request is $151,363. We had previously received a TAP grant of $462,717. So the local match on the current grant application would be $275,890. And these grant funds are for FY 23.
23.
23.
Wow.
So a
So-
bit in the future.
So July 1, 22. That's
Okay.
when, yeah, that's the right side.
Okay. Don, the first resolution.
Resolution approving an application to the Metropolitan Planning Organization of Johnson County for grant funding via the Transportation Alternative Program in connection with the Clear Creek Trail Connection, Highway 6 to the Tom Harkin Trailhead, introduced for adoption by Councilmember Gross, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Foster. Discussion?
Yeah, just, I would point out a couple things about this one in particular. It is not currently on our tip, on the MPOJC's tip, and we are asking to have that amended at the same time as we're making this grant application. So MPOJC board will have to make a decision in that regards. I would like to just point out a couple of things. that we all know, and that it'll be important, I think, for everybody else that's looking at scoring this application. This not only provides the connection to the Clear Creek Trail, but it also provides a valuable connection to two other things. And one is Borlaug School, because there's now students that will be going from north of Highway 6. And so if you were more than likely riding your bike, because it would be a long way to walk, but you could walk as well. But if you were riding your bike, you wouldn't be able to get there on a trail. And the other one is that we get a significant amount of complaints over time of people that want to get to the post office, and they may not have transportation, and so they would have to walk there, but there's not a trail there either. And so I think it's a good one to remember, just the other reasons for this besides just trying to access the trail system.
And just one little
Yeah, go ahead.
detail on the application of the resolution, Harkins misspelled. I don't know if you guys caught that or not, but, okay.
Ah,
Yeah,
it
that's
is.
right.
It's I-N, yeah.
It was misspelled.
You guys having your own debate down there?
Yeah. She said it was spelled right. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody.
Not at all.
But Kelly, what you just described won't address the issues been brought to us before about in front of quality care stories.
Yeah,
that
this
it would
would
provide
include
that
that.
sidewalk then.
Yeah,
so.
this would be that portion as
That
well,
would be
because it
huge.
goes
Yeah.
all the way from the highway down across the railroad tracks.
So it goes both directions, kinda, yeah.
Well, it's just one direction. It's from Highway 6 south,
To the trailhead.
trailhead, yeah.
Oh, that'd
Which
be great
goes
to get
by
that
the
done.
post office and by quality care.
Yep.
I've heard a lot of feedback about that specific stretch, and I'm really glad to see that it's being included.
Great. Well, let's do a roll call on it then.
Gill. Aye. Dodds.
Aye.
Goodrich.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gross.
Aye.
Resolution passes all ayes. Second project, Don?
Resolution approving an application to the Metropolitan Planning Organization of Johnson County for grant funding via the Transportation Alternative Program in connection with the Coralville Iowa River Trail, Rocky Shore Drive to Clear Creek. Creek with two E's, Mitch. Introduced for adoption by Councilmember Gill, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Dodds. Discussion. Anything you want to say about this one?
Not specifically about this one, but right after this, I could point out the other two applications.
Is this through the river? This one? Creek? I call it a river.
The abutments in the creek.
Yeah, this is from where the bridge lets off, because we do have some of those, that funding is already committed for, I think it's FY '21.
Okay.
Because it would start, I think this planning can start this fall for the bridge.
Good.
And then there's some of the funds that would take the trail, but it's not enough to do the whole thing. And this is the trail that was wiped out in the floods of 2008. This was actually the first trail that Coralville ever had, which was the connection between Crandick Park, Iowa City, and Coralville.
Anything else? Roll call.
Dodds.
Aye.
Goodrich.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gross. Gill.
Aye.
Resolution passes all ayes.
Yeah, I would just point out that there are two other grants, and these would be for road projects that don't take your endorsement. So those are being applied for too. One is 5th Street from 12th Avenue to 20th Avenue. The other one is one that we applied last time, which is for the permanent solution at Oakdale and First Avenue, and that would be for a roundabout at that point in time. Last time we got very poor scoring because you all took the initiative to put up those temporary signals, and because that helped solve the problem, even though it was a temporary nature, we got very poor scoring. So we did talk to MPO-JC staff about we shouldn't be penalized for trying to solve a problem in a temporary nature, and they agreed, and there were several things that they asked us to point out in the application. So hopefully we do a little bit better on that scoring this time.
Good. Thank you, Kelly. Item 14 is post-construction stormwater ordinance fee in lieu. And this is basically reestablishing the fee amount of $45,000 per acre of impervious surface in place for assessment on stormwater practices for future projects. Did I say that well enough?
Yeah.
Okay. Don?
Resolution adopting, excuse me, a fee in lieu amount in place of fiscal stormwater practices on site as required by Chapter 159.07 of the Code of Ordinances 2011 of the City of Coralville, introduced for adoption by Councilmember Dodds, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Gill. Discussion. Roll call.
Goodrich.
Aye.
Foster.
Aye.
Gross. Gill.
Aye.
Dodds.
Aye.
Resolution passes all ayes. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented or amended.
Move to approve the consent calendar, items A through K inclusive.
Moved by Gill, seconded by Dodds. Roll call.
Foster.
Aye.
Gross.
Aye.
Gill.
Aye.
Dodds.
Aye.
Goodrich.
Aye.
Consent calendar is approved, all ayes. City Administrator report.
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Mayor's report, I just say I'm glad to be back. We had a wonderful trip down under, and I made all the better by knowing what you guys had to endure up here. Made us appreciate more what we had to enjoy down there. Of course, it kind of all started with a fabulous party on that Friday night at Brown Deer that we threw for my wife's retirement, and many of you were at that, and it was a great time was had by all. So we're ready to get kind of back in the groove. We're not quite there yet. You know, Diana's home all day, every day now, and so we got to kind of work that out. So
You gotta leave.
Yeah. Sounds like you guys did a great job. Everything was under control. Thanks, Mitch, for sitting in the chair. And that's all I have. City Attorney report.
I have nothing, Kevin.
Nothing.
Okay. Committee and council members report.
I have, but
Lori, you want to start tonight?
I do. I'm surprised that the attorneys have nothing. Just like to say again, thank you to all those who are working outdoors and keeping our city safe and filling potholes and all that. And it continues to be cold, and we really appreciate the work that they're doing. The Center for Performing Arts in Coralville is having Regina's Little Mermaid this weekend, March 1st through the 3rd. You can get tickets for that. And then the next weekend, the 8th through the 10th, is Young Footlighters performing Alice in Wonderland.
Great. Thank you, Lori. Jill?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I have a couple things. One, I went to a professional development opportunity at the Center for Disabilities and Development this weekend on autism. And they had the Iowa City Community Autism Group there, which is parents of children with that, and they were discussing autism accessible spaces. And I see that Allison Ames Gallstead is here, our director of our library. And in their pamphlets, it talked about that Iowa City and North Liberty had joined forces together to offer autism-friendly programming. And I was wondering if that would be something that Coralville could join into, because we are certainly accepting of everyone enjoying our library. So I can give you any information you need on that, Allison. The other thing I wanted to bring up was I read in the Press Citizen yesterday about the Cedar Rapids and the Iowa City business leaders working or signing up on the Iowa Compact on Immigration. And I thought that that really read well, and that perhaps, I don't know if cities are normally asked to join, but I thought this could be something that we discuss, since we're a progressive community and really look at ourselves as a welcoming, hospitable, and very business friendly to our immigration population. We have a lot more immigrants in Coralville every day, so I would like to ask you to consider that.
Okay.
That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Tom?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. It's been a cold month, an icy month, and I call out, all of the city workers have done a fabulous job, and I'd just like to call out two departments, the police department and the fire department, that have been instrumental in keeping this town safe. One night I was taking my granddaughters home, and it was icy, and there was a Coralville policeman on the side of the road, because it was icy. And a few minutes later, here comes the salt truck, and then again the fire department and and they're handled a few fires this month, and it's been kind of hard with the ice and the roads and that. But again, thank you, police and fire and streets department. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Well put. Mitch?
Yeah, well, this is, I don't know if the word's ironic, but Allison's here, and Joe, what you said, because I was going to kind of dovetail on both those comments. First of all, just wanted to talk about, when we think about the library, it's so much more than books, and one of the really cool things that the library offers is on Wednesday mornings at 9:30 a.m., our library hosts and is allows for mostly a lot of retired educators who teach free English language classes for learners of English. And I think at 2 library meetings ago, had the teachers come and kind of talk about their experience. And it's a standing room only crowd, because I think of the notion that Coralville is such a welcoming place, which I also saw the article and just thought too it'd be, I think, good for our city to have that discussion to sign on as well. So it's just funny that you're here and you brought that up. Also, I want to just give a shout out. Rex left, but I do appreciate his going through the budget with a fine tooth comb and having citizen input like that is very, very appreciative of all of us on council. And lastly, I was just reminded too, we in this chamber last Saturday hosted a legislative forum, and I just think, we as a community are so lucky to have Representative Jacoby and Senator Walls as our representatives, because they really do a great job. And I don't want to steal your thunder if you're going to, but I wanted to give a shout out to your significant other who is giving the keynote for the chamber dinner and celebration this Thursday night too. So we have a lot of great folks here in Coralville. That's all, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mitch. Megan?
I just want to echo Jill and Mitch's sentiments about the agreement with, or the compact with the cities. I think that would be fantastic. I think, it's interesting to see that the chamber is talking about immigration, because, in addition to us wanting to be an inclusive community and welcoming to immigrants, immigration is a really critical part of economic development. So I think that would be really fantastic. I just wanted to mention 2 community events that are coming up. The first is this weekend, the formerly known as the Crisis Center of Johnson County. They just announced last night that they are changing their name to Community. But they are hosting their annual pancake breakfast this Saturday, March 2nd, starting at 7 o'clock a.m. at Our Redeemer Lutheran Church. That is a really fantastic event. I love pancakes, so I will be there. It's one of my guilty pleasures. So I hope to see everyone there. And then I also wanted to pass along next Thursday, March 7th, DVIP will be having their Super Bowl event starting at 5:30 p.m. at the Clarion Highlander. And that is another fantastic event that will benefit a really vital organization in our community. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. And I always go to that breakfast, and I didn't have it on my calendar, so I do now, so thanks. Okay, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.